Wonderful. Well, I want to thank everyone for attending to today's event. Just a reminder again that if any of you have any questions for our speaker, just to please type them in the chat box. We're going to work on getting all of them answered. And then after our Q&A session later on, we're going to be announcing 3 winners of the Winter Survival Kit, which is provided by 7 Summits. So make sure to stick around for that. All right, so I would like to welcome Bethany Perkins, who is the VP of Marketing for 7 Summits, which is an IBM company. So today she's going to share how marketing has grown in the past 3 years, which helped to position 7 Summits for the possible business growth transactions that ultimately ended up with their acquisition this past December by IBM. So welcome, Bethany, and I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you so much. And I see old friend Chandra in the chat. Hi, Chandra. Anyway, I'd like to start today with a little bit of a disclaimer. I am not, nor do I claim to be an expert in entrepreneurial business funding. I'm a marketer whose niche is content and communications. So today I'm only sharing my personal experiences and some publicly available research that I've mostly appropriately cited. You probably have great insights of your own, so please use the chat, as you guys are already doing so greatly, to ask questions or offer your own point of view at any point during this presentation. As all of us as digital marketers can attest, it's going to be a much better hour if we actually engage together during this time. So I'm fully acknowledging that I am not an expert at this, but I do have a lot of experience in this area. I've actually learned that I'm quite unique in that I have actively participated in more than 7 transactions in my career. So for those of you that don't have a frame of reference to it, that's a lot. Most people are never involved in a funding transaction, or at most 1 or 2 if you've chosen to work in an industry or with businesses that are likely to transact. But so by choosing to work in digital marketing, you have definitely not signed up to work on funding transactions. But as a current or future marketing leader, I can attest that it is super helpful to understand the basics. My goal for today is that it will help all of us be more highly valued assets to our organization the next time they're talking transaction in the boardroom. Coming back to my personal experience, the roles I've played have admittedly been pretty much all over the place. From being the member of the executive team preparing management presentations, to being a publicist at a time of board infighting, to a member of an integration work stream, I have seen transactions from positions of power and complete impotence. So my content today pulls from across that spectrum of experience. But to start us off, I think it's prudent to get on the same page as what we mean when we say transactions. So at a super inexact level of detail, transactions refers to all the tiers of invested funding a company can experience as it grows. So maybe you are all MBAs and this is going to be boring for you, but I didn't know the basics of this process or what most of these terms meant until I was actively living portions of this with my employers. So in case there are any other me's in the audience, give us comm school grads a moment here to understand the business side of things. So business funding process traditionally starts very simply with seed funding. It's usually a personal investment by the entrepreneur and any friends, family, or close network connections who believe in the business idea. Seed funding usually sustains a company for a year or 2 and allows a company to build a valuation of a couple $1 million. If the business idea has promise, and the business operations have matured to a place where they're consistent and repeatable, an entrepreneur may then seek angel investment or join an incubator. And those sponsorships are 2 to 4 years and develop a company to, on average, $3 to $10 million. Series A is a term that most people have heard tossed around, and it's the biggest early milestone for most entrepreneurs. It means that you've built something that has attracted the attention of venture capital. Alternatively, now in the modern environment, Series A funding is being more and more often generated through equity crowdsourcing campaigns, so multiple investors coming together. But either way, the infusion of both cash and outside opinions at this point is often a major inflection point for growing businesses. Series fundings then can continue through the alphabet soup B, C, D, E, et cetera. But most growing companies at some point find themselves backed by a private equity firm. Most of these investment relationships last 3 to 5 years because PE firms tend to specialize in growth brackets. So example, the PE firm that's going to take you from 25 to 100 million is not going to take you from 100 to 300. So once the company has reached the top end of its PE firm's portfolio, the firm is ready to cash in their investment, and the investors and the business need to talk exit strategy. And there are basically 4 options for exit strategy. The first is that a business can seek another private equity firm to support their next level of growth. The second is that they would seek a strategic buyer, meaning they will merge with or be acquired by another, usually much larger entity. The third is that they'll seek an IPO and they'll go public on one of the exchanges. Or the fourth is very rare, but it is when a company raises enough capital to buy out the PE firm and go back into a self-funding model. This is happens in the case of family businesses frequently, but not frequently if you look at the grand scope of all of those options. For most businesses, the end game is either a new PE investment, and as a former CFO explained it to me, it's basically refinancing your mortgage, right? So you have more liquid cash to play with, or purchased by a strategic buyer. And being purchased by a strategic buyer is how you end up with so much consolidation in growth markets. So first time to engage in the chat, and hello to all my awesome friends and folks who came out today. Toss in the chat for me the type of transactions that you've been a part of in your career. My guess is we'll uncover some more terms than those simplified ones that I used here. While you do that, when I was with Cielo, we participated in a switch from venture capital to private equity and completed 2 acquisitions within that PE ownership. Well, you guys aren't playing along in my chat right now, so I'm going to keep us moving forward. Thank you, Heather. Okay, there we go. Yes, 2 PE ownership changes. Yep. Yep, and a lot of people haven't. Like I said, most people will never have a transaction, but as marketers, it's important for us to understand it anyway. So I want to share a quick agenda of how we're going to spend the next 30 minutes or so as we move forward. I'm going to start with a brief overview of my current company. I'm going to give you a peek underneath the hood of our marketing program, and then I'm going to walk you through the 8 proactive ways I think marketing can increase a company's valuation. And then as was shared in the intro, we'll close out with more Q&A, but please bring it in during the chat as well. Brent has those giveaways to share. And I don't know about you, but back-to-back Zoom calls without a bio break is my daily downfall. So if all goes as planned, we are going to end a few minutes early so that I can give time back to you and frankly to myself to refresh before whatever we have next. So I'm going to dig in. Backed by the power of IBM, 7 Summits is a Salesforce consulting partner best known for helping clients use digital collaboration and automation to solve business problems. Our clients benefit from the fact that intelligent digital experiences built on the Salesforce platform empower customers, enable partners, and unleash employees to build your business for you. 7 Summits was founded in early 2009 by Paul Stillmake. He is still the current CEO. He used his own savings to start the fledgling consultancy. He is quoted as saying, "I just knew that everything would change once the social constructs amplified by new media swept through popular culture." As digital marketers, I think we can appreciate how right he was. The company originally focused on building social business strategies that were centered on the Jive platform. I see in the chat, I want to make sure our people, can somebody comment? Do you see 7 Summits transactions as your slide? I don't want to get ahead. We do, Charlie. Thank you. Awesome. So back to the list. We are on the first point right there with Paul opening the company and starting on the Jive platform. So Jive was popular enough that just a year after he crowdfunded, he was able to crowdfund equity to continue the growth of the company. Then in 2011, the company was watching more and more Salesforce customers enter their portfolio. So in December 2013, when private equity firm Spherica International backed the company, it was already strongly tilting away from Jive to focus solely on Salesforce. Salesforce Ventures rewarded that pivot of June of 2014 when it gave Seven Summits a cash infusion. And based on the company's outstanding continued growth, it did so again in April of 2017. So I joined Seven Summits in January of 2018. My role was actually created using the additional capital from that growth infusion, some of which was allocated to build up a marketing function. So then after 7 years with the same PE firm, which is far longer than the traditional, as we saw before, Seven Summits decided to explore the market and found there to be strong interest from both private equity and strategic buyers. So after thoughtful deliberation and well above average multiples, Seven Summits was acquired by IBM in December of 2020. So that's our transaction path, also a lot of transitions. So with that background, let's move into marketing. So this is a one-pager that was admittedly originally prepared for our transaction management presentations, and it summarizes what falls under the umbrella of marketing at Seven Summits. So yes, that is my entire team, and I am so lucky they decided to join us today. Thanks, guys. We were proud to have generated more than 25 million in sourced pipeline in 2020 for the company. That was admittedly shy of our goal. The pandemic, or more precisely, the events and gatherings that didn't happen because of the pandemic, had a tangible impact on our ability to drive pipeline in 2020. I think that'll be a familiar story to many of you, but the company overall exceeded all bookings and revenue goals. So I will actually be forever thankful for this crazy time because it gave us the mandate and freed up the budget to test and trial new digital marketing tactics. So many of them have the longer tail strategies. So I anticipate we're going to see those paying off this year. And in many cases, we already have. My small team is able to do so much of our incredible work because of our agency partners. So I would be remiss if I didn't shout out CI Design and Detonator as a part of this. Charlie, I see you're on here as well. So huge thanks to those teams. We also have what I am going to describe as a very suitable tech stack. So obviously it's a mix of both licensed and third-party administered tools. We use everything you would expect us to. And apropos of nothing but that I'm talking to a room full of marketers, which is not something I get to do every day, I just want to share with you guys that as in 2020, as we transitioned to more direct prospect marketing through digital outlets, we actually leaned into both content syndication and intent targeting as a way to build up our database. And I feel it's really doing a great job of properly balancing quality with quantity. With my SDR Mike here on the phone, I think he would like a little higher quality, but we're still doing pretty well. I also transferred spend from events and hospitality to search engine and social media PPC, and that was expanded the reach of our keyword strategies and increased our rankings and website lead conversions. So all things we were able to do with that freed up budget that otherwise we might not have. So next, I plan to show you the most comprehensive picture I've created of our program. But I actually think it's important to look back first. So no, I have not lost my mind, and I am not using you as pawns in my little program to get my own cooking show, nor am I recruiting you into the cult of the flying spaghetti monster. These two images are what I think of when I reminisce on how we defined marketing when I joined Seven Summits in 2018. It was a story of success despite ourselves. The sticky mess of pasta is evocative of the fact that there were many one-off attempts at prospect outreach that were of the same variety, but they lacked a sauce, or if I can escape my metaphor for a second, they lacked a marketing leader or strategic plan, and therefore existed as a tumbled mass of really bland one-off attempts that lacked any finesse to pull it all together under a recognizable brand or message. Various consultants had truly done their best with the guidance and budgets that had been supplied to them, but without a steady center, their best efforts ended up creating a messy mass of tactics that were more awkwardly congealed than properly sauced together. Further, Our CRM prospect database and website were so full of holes through the process that it was like leads were seeping out the bottom like water through a colander. So at first I viewed this as an awesome opportunity to start from scratch. I will just build it up brand new. But there was just enough entanglement of existing systems and contractual investments, both known and discovered, that it took a solid 9 months to kind of unwind everything and reconstruct. But by 2019, we had made a huge amount of progress. We did not have the fanciest dish with the most expensive ingredients. You just saw my tech stack. We still don't, but we did have a cohesive strategy-led program held together with a core message and understanding of our audience, and then adorned with an appetite for experimentation to find the exact right recipe for long-term success. So what did we make with this new recipe? This is the picture I promised from before. This is the 7 Summit sales and marketing machine, as simply but completely as I can picture it, to show all that marketing does and how our programs fit intimately together with the programs led by sales and alliances. Because sales, marketing, and alliances are working in lockstep most of the time, we have built a machine that was cited as a primary reason for our above average valuation and our above average level of interest by both private equity and strategic buyers when we explored the market. Breaking this traffic down, but still staying at a very high level, I've categorized all of the tasks that our sales, marketing, and alliances functions must perform, from prospect attraction through to customer advocacy. And then I've documented the programs that support that pipeline to bookings funnel creation. With the exception of the sales funnel, the lighter blue, nearly all of the categories have shared responsibilities between sales, marketing, and alliances. So you'll notice no distinction in ownership for each effort. Now, I will be completely disingenuous if I led you to believe that we are doing all of these things at an exceptionally high level. We have a lot of work to do around pipeline velocity and customer advocacy, for example, and we're just starting to pilot an account-based strategy. So as fellow marketers, I hope you find this interesting, but how this ties directly to today's topic is that you have to prove to investors that you can talk the talk, even if you aren't yet or never will walk the walk. Account-based marketing is that example for 7 Summits. Investors wanted to know that we had a point of view on account-based marketing. They were completely okay with the fact that we don't have an ABM program, because we could explain why it was not appropriate for us, why it would serve as a distraction from our success momentum, and how we plan to pick up those little pieces that we did think they were valuable and integrate them in our future plans. So this leads me to my first point of view on how marketing can help organizations improve their valuations. Landing an investor is not about doing all of the things or about jumping on the most recent trends. Marketing can help the organization get a top valuation by doing what they do exceptionally well and understanding what they're not doing and being able to articulate it. If you, like me, are focused on pipeline generation, then you need to have the best possible program focused on pipeline generation that you can. If something entirely new is going to be more of a distraction from growth than an accelerant, stop it before it gets in your way. As digital marketers, there are always something more new, exciting, and intriguing that lay in front of us. But we have to use our best stay away judgment to the degree that we might not exercise traditionally when nearing the time of a transaction. Yes, Heather, just because you can doesn't mean you should. The visual on this slide is my 7 Summits example of this. And no, you weren't meant to read it in detail. It's just representative. This triangle was developed based on one that Kristen Wright sent me. Thank you, Kristen. To explain within my organization that yes, we understand account-based marketing, and there are pieces of it that we can use for intelligent targeting, but there are more things that we aren't doing than those that we are doing. This visual was complemented with a list of the reasons that ABM does not complement our heavily channel-based sales strategy. So I'm interested from some of you who are in there chatting, if you have any examples of shiny objects that you're avoiding because they're going to be more of a distraction than a growth accelerant to your business. If you have an example of that, toss it in the chat. While you do that, I do want to be really clear on one point. Please don't hear me saying that you don't need to be creative and test and trial new tactics. Of course, we all know that this is a fundamental part of a thoughtful, successful strategy. But it is better for your organization to have a predictable proof of your ability than to deliver a showcase of slides that are filled with tactics and activities for which you have no understanding of their actual ability to generate consistent pipeline results. So I'm going to move on to my next point while you guys continue to throw some comments in the chat. You've got to be predictable because, like usually my black sweater, I'm wearing blue today, I branched out. Predictable is not boring, it's insightful. At most organizations, it is not marketing's job to follow and report on bookings and revenue funnels, as it shouldn't be. That's for sales and operations. But we should be partnering closely with sales and operations to be able to inform their reporting with our piece of the pipeline funnel. So while I can argue harder than anyone that marketing pipeline predictability is imperfect and impossible for many reasons, we have to use our data where we can and find enough levers that we know we can pull to realize a desired result most of the time. Investors want confidence that your past success was not a fluke and it was actually indicative of what they can expect from you in the future. This visual here is the return on marketing investment, or ROMI tracker, that I worked with Spherica, Seven Summits PE firm, to develop. This is the highest cut of the data, but what it represents is that we're using data to make decisions, and we could get predictive about how our investment dollars would translate to pipeline generated. It helped uncover underperforming events and affirmed other strategies as critically important over the long term. For Seven Summits, underperforming events were sponsoring Salesforce World Tours. Having a booth in a crowded room to showcase our deeply consultative services was not a valuable investment. On the other hand, deepening our investment in intelligent automation of our channel emails was a no-brainer based on the return we were seeing. I want to take a little bit of a side note here, just a lesson learned from the field. It was super important to get my management peers and the board aligned at this point that our ROMI measurement would be based on marketing influence, so multi-touch across the lifetime of the engagement, not simply opportunity lead source. It was actually a really great and informative discussion that has served me very well since, particularly in a tough year like 2020, when the budget data could not tell us any type of reliable story. So circling back to the key point, I want to clarify a bit again, that doesn't mean that every program has to be a known entity with proven ROI, but our toolkits should have enough predictable tried and truths that we can then use the digital world as our playground to fill in the rest. So hopefully you've just agreed with me that it's good to be predictable. The best way I found to be predictable is first knowing our market. Marketing can support a company's valuation immensely by leading the charge and helping the company understand where to focus its efforts. This is nothing new, but sometimes the back to basics items are the hardest to spend time on. This is about market research and competitive understanding. It's about customer profiles, persona exercise, journey mapping, and content mapping. The top visual on this slide is an annual exercise that I do as a part of strategic planning to ensure we are staying rightly and sometimes tightly aligned with the trends of the Salesforce ecosystem. We are reliant on Salesforce's continued market expansion, so understanding emerging trends on their platform is critical to our growth plans. Investors will be doing this research about your market as well, so it is critically important that when you are in discussions with your investors, your company can showcase a clear point of view on what's now and what's next to get a top valuation. So next, I'll fully admit that the lower graphic is one that I completed for Seven Summits 2 weeks ago. My team was literally working on this before they jumped on the call today. As we are inching towards an account-based strategy, we have invested in developing more detailed ideal customer profiles specific to our target industries. For many of you, this is probably an exercise that just needs to be dusted off annually. For us, we've been working from deep persona exercises about our buyers, but not about our target accounts. So this is a way that we've leveled up even just recently. And I can share with you that from the conversations and the people I've shared this with at our new company, IBM, this would have served us very well in our management presentations while we were looking for our valuation. So to close out this point, I want to be crystal clear that marketing, just collecting this information and doing these exercises for your departmental use or because it's the right thing to do, completely misses the point. Success with this is about communicating and sharing these deliverables with your colleagues so that they find value in referring to them as they set the strategy for your business. If you are performing these exercises and they are not highly socialized, unfortunately, you're missing out on a big opportunity. So this next one should be a big duh moment, but I don't think I'm alone in having worked at companies that don't quite have this one down. To affirm me, please drop a comment or raise your little hand in the reactions if you have ever worked for a company that is trying to sell things that you know from your research your buyers don't actually want. Having a great product and an understanding of your market and audience pains is important, but taking the next step to organize that information into a plan that actually attracts prospects is where many, especially startups, fall short. You only have to watch one episode of Shark Tank to understand that translating an amazing, innovative idea into something someone will actually spend their finite resources on is the real challenge. Thank you, Andy, Katie, and others for affirming me. From my experience, investors are drawn to a compelling go-to-market strategy. Defined by Gartner, a go-to-market strategy is a plan that details how an organization can engage with customers to convince them to buy their product or service and to gain competitive advantage. You heard it from me at the top of this presentation. At 7 Summits, we help our clients build connected experiences that empower customers, enable partners, and unleash employees to build their business for you. That's our core go-to-market message, which is a foundational piece of our go-to-market strategy. Our go-to-market strategy is pages and pages of documentation that align client pain points with our services and accelerators. It is highly useful to refer back to that so often because it means that we're always returning to our center and always delivering on who we are and who our customers need us to be. As marketers, we owe it to our organizations to be the arbiters of a centralized message. We can't just have our brand narrative and uniques in a sales training PowerPoint presentation that gets rolled out for new hires. We are the keys to elevating the company package of strategic thinking into a digestible format that is not only appealing to our buyers, but easily communicated by our people across all our assets and reflected in our digital real estate. So next I want to tell you a little story, and it's a story that some of us on this call know well. This is the story of the world's worst website. Okay, maybe not the world's, but by all accounts, the Salesforce SI ecosystem's worst website. And I know this story very well because this is the story of 7 Summits website. When I joined 7 Summits, it did not contain the word Salesforce in metadata. Please keep in mind, when I joined the company, it had been solely a Salesforce implementer for nearly 5 years at that point. The website did have gems of content gold and a great library of compelling case studies, but it was nearly impossible to find them amidst the shoddy WordPress template, confusing circular navigation, 300 uncategorized pages, and more vague language and jargon than could fill an MBA textbook. Now, we had no budget and no appetite to pull resources to a website redesign. So I spent 2.5 years attempting incremental improvements while sitting in meetings and nodding along while people complained of its misrepresentation of who we are and what we do. There was so much pride of ownership in what the website had been to the company in its early years. And so I had to navigate more than just functionality, but an actual emotional connection to that previous iteration. I was stuck between being asked to adopt more digital marketing strategies to ensure that our name would be prominent in all the right spaces when investors went on Google, and not wanting anyone to see our hot mess of a website. I mean, we were the shoemaker's unclad children. We basically build websites for a living, and our website was really bad. Then there was this slowly emerging miracle. The website started doing very strange things. I remember sending an email to Sean and my team going, did you take down a bunch of our core content? He hadn't. Investigations determined that we were losing functionality daily, and we were going to have to redo the entire website from scratch. Our WordPress template was literally self-deprecating. I remember an email to Charlie as well, where he goes, no, what's happening isn't possible, but it's happening, because we didn't think a template could self-deprecate. So we are a company that is entirely reliant on form conversion for inbound pipeline. And we had to turn off all of our digital strategies that pointed to the website or our forms, because at any given moment, we couldn't be sure that they would be functioning. We also knew that in 8 weeks, we would start up management presentations. And in the transaction world, the deep research into a company that happens by the people who matter is in the week prior to that management presentation. They do their personal due diligence. And of course, our website and digital presence would be a huge part of that. So that gave me 7 weeks to launch a new website. And because I was not going to miss the opportunity while it was in front of me, it had to be so much more than an MVP website. It had to meet brand standards. Please stop giggling. I see a few smiles. Our previous website had 0 brand standards applied. It had to be 100% fresh content to best represent everything I knew about the market and our buyers. It had to be a spot-on representation of our go-to-market message. And of course, I wanted all the automation and analytics that I had been missing from the previous one. And it had to be cheap, and it had to be live in 7 weeks. And we did it. It inspired quite a bit of heartburn at times, but 7 weeks from signature, we launched an entirely brand new 7summitsinc.com. I could not have done it without my amazing team, but also Ryan, Jacob, Charlie, and team from CI Design. But I tell you this not only to sing their praises, and not only because I am damn proud of what we created, but I tell you this because I do not believe we would have gotten the valuation we got without the new website. You see, prior to the new website, our primary face to the world didn't match what investors would be experiencing from us or see in our management presentation materials. There was a stunning disconnect from the Salesforce forward growing experience experts that they would have met with and heard about, and the mess of a website that danced around social business language and showcased links to nowhere. So the lesson here is twofold. The first is, if you have all the items that we've discussed up to this point, the data, the knowledge, and the strategy, it's actually relatively easy to pull your brand together when things teeter sideways. Had we not had those pieces existing for us already, we could not have pulled off the website in 7 weeks. But the second lesson here is a bit more on topic for today. Your brand experience has to be consistent across digital, print, and in person, internally and externally. In my case, it was the website. But for you, it might be a rogue microsite or an aging ad campaign, a divergent sponsorship, or most marketers' personal favorite, a rogue salesperson with access to clip art. The point is that marketing has to get comfortable navigating the realities and emotions of a growing company to ensure that legacy artifacts don't stand in the way of your next round of funding. I challenge you to think about and really dig into what are those legacy artifacts at your organization that might be standing in your way. So I just touched on it momentarily, but as a publicist by trade, I want to spend a bit more time on brand reputation. When it comes to attracting the attention of investors, awards, recognitions, and positive press matter. I'm going to pause for a second and just say what we all should know and what I think we all do know. but there is such a thing as bad press, and it will limit or eliminate your funding options. But I'm going to presume that we are all basically ethical people working at basically ethical companies. So let's return to the key point. Being able to point to third-party endorsements of your corporate and product or service related greatness is super important. There is no award too small or analyst mention too brief. Get as many of them as you can and promote them everywhere. Add an awards page to your website. Do a brand recognition display campaign. Post social pictures of physical awards and ceremonies. These things make a difference when investors are shortlisting their preferences. Now, a bit of warning, most seasoned investors also know the awards that are basically just pay for play. So when I say go for everything, I do suggest that you are selective in signing up with those abstract internet-only publications that will list anyone in their top firms in X industry, or question being featured in an in-flight video series. Depending on what you sell, maybe those are great strategies, you do you. But when it comes to an investor's lens, they are savvy as to what is earned versus bought. And if you can't find an award that matches your niche, go out and create one and give it to others. An award program is a great way to gain brand recognition and position your company as an expert on what is the best. So up to this point, we've basically talked about everything that assumes you are a great company operating successfully with a great product or service and a growing list of happy clients. I think it's important that we don't lose sight of the fact that saying those things is not enough. You have to be able to prove it first and foremost to your prospects. I guess that's a given, but equally to your potential investors. All the awards and media placements in the world don't hold a candle to a solid slate of client references. Marketing can strongly influence evaluation by having mechanisms for the collection and distribution of assets like case studies, testimonials, and CSAT scores. We need to be working with our finance leaders to come up with MSA language that talk about marketing partnerships and the use of brand assets. We need to train our salespeople on how to make the ask or insert ourselves into that process. And most importantly, we need to respect those clients that opt out. Once again, this topic comes with a caveat. I love my caveats, but don't be the company that infers approval of adding a logo to a website or taking a pull quote from a private email and share it on social media. If your clients are truly pleased with the service you're providing, they will find a way to get you some form of approval that everyone can be happy with. Again, sharing my own experience. Seven Summits has a very large client that we work with a number of their business units. None of you look like snitches, so I'm going to tell you to Google the alphabet for a hint. This company does not allow us to use their brand, logo, or solutions in any marketing and sales efforts. Well, unsurprisingly, their logo was in all of our confidential management presentations. So I can't tell you how many times I've had to tell my new IBM colleagues, nope, sorry, you can't use that logo. You're going to get us fired from the client. Instead, I created a catalog of similar stories that I can send to those people, and I heavily use the delete button when draft decks are shared with me. As marketers, we have to be the chief storytellers, but at times we also have to be the chief risk mitigators. So I hope by now you've noticed one common theme throughout this presentation. Marketing has a leadership role in preparing a company for transaction. Whether you have a seat in the management presentations or not, and frankly, I never have, you can still play a significant role in the process. If you're currently in a marketing leadership role, know that investors look to the extended leadership teams in a company to determine the depth of competent management. They use that as a part of their valuation equation. Learn the language of investment so that you can join the conversation. And add potential investors as critical audiences in your departmental strategic plans. This sends a signal to your management team that you understand the future vision of the organization and the vital role marketing plays in achieving it. And if you're on the agency side, as I know many of you are, this all pertains directly to how you support your clients as well. As a marketing leader, I'm thinking about this, so I need you thinking about it with me. Not only because it isn't anything special, if this presentation has proven anything, it's that our day-to-day capabilities influence valuation. But it's because so often companies like Seven Summits 3 years ago are trying to do these things without a marketing leader or strategy. They need informed agency partners who are helping them through this thinking. So to close out, the natural next question is, so how do I know when my company is getting ready for a transaction, Bethany? It is a great question, but the answer is not at all simple. In my personal experience and knowing how the process traditionally works, being a party to a company's transaction timeline ranges greatly, from being shocked when the announcement comes to being fully involved in the process to there being an unspoken understanding. Again, my personal examples of this are, I found out with everyone else in the world when Manpower acquisition went public, but I was very involved in the acquisition of 2 companies when I was at Cielo. And at Seven Summits, I joined the company understanding that they were at the tail end of a private equity relationship in a market where competitors were getting acquired frequently. I knew what I was going into. So my advice to you is, first, educate yourself. Look at the funding history of the company you are at or the company you plan to join and draw your own educated conclusions. Next, just ask. While timelines and deadlines and details of transactions are highly confidential and usually kept to a very small group, the strategic direction of your company should not be limited to a small group. So finally, if you're asking the question and you're not getting the answers you want, integrate potential investors into your planning. If you're told that you're batty for doing that and it's completely unnecessary, there's your big hint that it isn't on management's radar. But if you're even opening up that discussion, chances are your management will appreciate that you're thinking about the big picture. And my final bonus bullet is, don't be scared of transactions. Yes, people get laid off during acquisitions. Yes, a change in company's ownership can put pressures on a business. But in my experience, new owners also mean more money, more access to resource, and new opportunities for growth. If what you're doing is working, you're not going anywhere. And in fact, you're likely to get a chance to do even more. So if nothing else, I hope the next time someone from your C-suite asks for a brand guidelines deck and you find out it's for a banker, you'll have a little bit of a hint to what's up. My contact information is on the screen. I'm happy to throw it in the chat as well. Thank you to all of you who have done that. I'm going to go through and click links here. I really have enjoyed this time. I enjoyed preparing this presentation. There's not a lot out there about this. I think marketing often gets marginalized in these discussions. And so I'm so excited that a group of us were able to come together and talk about it. That said, earlier, so many of you posted about your experiences. So I'm super interested if I missed something, if there's anything that you might frame differently. And Brent, is it okay with you? I've tried to follow the chat, but I do know there are some questions and comments I think I missed.
Yeah, we've got a couple. I think, let me go to notes here real quick. Kristen Wright had asked, she said, Bethany said most of the time you are aligned with sales and alliances. We could probably all relate. I'd love to hear more about how you work to improve that alignment.
Sure. So I think my head of alliances, Kristen Anderson, is on here. We literally refer to ourselves as the 2 hips. She's left hip, I'm right hip. So we are so tightly aligned. We meet weekly and we make sure all of our strategies are aligned. I don't think we're the only 2 marketing and channel alliances people who sometimes feel like our alignment is 3 degrees off of sales understanding and the sales strategies, or in some cases, lack of strategies. So what both of us do is keep our eyes and ears open. We make sure each one of us knows what they're hearing from the other places. And we meet regularly with our sales leadership just to really dig into those points. It's about a lot of collaboration and it's about asking a lot of questions. You know, I'm doing this. Do I have you bought into this? Not just face value of, yeah, sure, go run and do it. But as again, Sean and Mike on my team can attest, our head of sales reads our campaigns, reads our emails before they go out. Now we're lucky because we're smaller still at this point that we can have that much transparency between the teams. But it is just about building those relationships. I don't have anything inventive on this topic to say that much better experts have absolutely covered. But it's about holding each other accountable. It's about calling out, and it's about finding your allies like Kristen and I are together so that we can be listening with an even greater set of ears to then be able to catch those misalignments as quickly as possible to get us back to the center.
Great. There was another question from Christine Dunbeck about, she'd like to hear your input on how to best tell leadership why not to do something they think is a good idea. She had the shiny object syndrome.
Absolutely. So if you know me, which many of you do, you know that I don't have a problem being rather blunt. So again, I think it comes back to forming relationships with your leadership so that they trust your opinions are coming not from a place of fear, not from a place of, I don't want to deal, but from a place of genuine consultancy. So I think understanding it, as we talked about just in that first concept, really having the details as to why something is going to be a distraction, and then having built the relationships that they trust that point of view. So whomever you're telling no to, make sure you've bought them their cocktail of choice in the prior 2 weeks. That you have that opportunity and that you're not saying no to everything. So sometimes it's also about picking your battles.
Great. Any other questions? And Bethany's got the contact information on there. We did record most of the event. I forgot to hit record right away.
Wait a minute. So the only thing you didn't record is my disclaimer?
Yeah. So we'll work with the communications team.
Brett, can I answer Tim's question? I didn't see it.
Oh yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I didn't say it till he said I only answered it partially here. How do we navigate what we have discovered with clients want next and develop that plan and get it in their schedule? Ooh, woof. That's a big one. Again, I think it's about being a party to those discussions. So how do you help your organization understand this, from a product marketing angle? So we do have products at 7 Summits as well as our services. So Sean and I meet with our product team every other week. We're having those discussions. We're bringing that detail to the table so that we can inform as early in the process. I think a lot of the problem happens is that your products teams are running and they're creating things opportunistically and as fast as they can. And so again, you're left in the no position, if you will, of saying, I know you've done work on this, but now I have to come in and blow it up. My team's nickname when I was at CLO was Wrecking Ball. So I think it's getting in front of it. I think it's getting really intentional again with the battles you pick. And I would say it's about establishing marketing's seat at that table for those conversations early in the roadmap planning and showing the value that you can bring to that early on, because when you bring the value to the first one, they're then going to want that input for the next ones. So it's also, again, about back-end tracking. Let them launch something that you're really questionable about, and then explain to them with data why that was not the right path and how you can make a different choice in the future.
Awesome. So we will get a link to the recording out through 414 Digital. So however you connected with us, if you take the newsletter or through social later, I'm going to turn it back over to Abby Zilke from Baird, and she's going to do some closing comments and announce our drawing winners. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Brent. All right. So the 3 winners, first one is Christine Dunbeck. Then we have Andy Mansfield and Katie Krieger. So we will contact you guys via email to arrange the best way to get you your winter survival kits. I want to thank everyone for attending today's event, and also to give a big thank you to you, Bethany, for being our speaker and sharing all of your knowledge with us. It was great. 414 Digital continues to strive to be Milwaukee's premier digital marketing organization, and we just want to continue to connect with all of you through events and networking. We have 4 remaining events this year. The next one's going to be held on May 20th. The speaker is going to be Suzanne Martin, who is the VP Executive Partner of Gartner. And the topic is going to be, do you have what it takes to become a digital genius? So we're hoping all of you can make it to that. Please make sure to visit our website, 414digital.org. There you can learn more about how to become a member, more details on our upcoming events, the available job opportunities, and just more about who 414 Digital is. And then if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and contact us. And then also make sure to follow us on social. So I hope everyone has a great rest of your day and week, and look forward to seeing you guys again. Take care. Bye.